Chronicles 19, 1 through 5. Now it came to pass after this that Nahash, king of the children of Ammon, died, and his son reigned in his place. Now it's typical for the sons to take place after their fathers. It's also David was king at this point, and David was one to make peace. We see how David's grandmother Ruth was a Moabitess, so he's kind of from mixed generations, mixed ancestry there. So he's more to try to make peace with those that are not of the Canaanites. Of course, David's for ridding the land of the Canaanites like they were supposed to, but Ammonites and Moabites were descended from Lot, not from those of Canaan. Those of Canaan, the Canaanites, had been in that land disobeying God for many years. The Moabites and Ammonites just are as new to the land as the Israelites. So we see how in the Bible, David ain't the eldest. We also see how Solomon ain't the eldest. So the way God chooses isn't always the eldest, but the way the world it was the oldest son was chosen as king. So we see when his father passes away, the oldest son becomes king. And David said, I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nasham, because his father showed kindness to me. And David sent messengers to comfort him concerning his father. So the servants of David came into the land of the children of Ammon to Haram to comfort him. So it was common practice to do a period of mourning. This is when David sends these men in. They would sometimes take a whole week just to mourn the death before they continued on with everything else. This, considering the king was taking this period of mourning, the whole kingdom in this time would have been in a period of mourning. Then he would have assumed his role as king and went from there with whatever duties he was going to do. So because his dad was nice to David, David's like, me and his father were on good terms. I'm going to make sure they continue with his son. This is very common to when leadership changes in the world today. They go make sure things are still at peace when leadership changes. This is common today, but it wasn't as common then. More common then because it would have been more common at that time. They're their weakest. They're changing kings. They're going in a new place. Everybody's mourning. It would have been more common then to try to take control of that kingdom during this time than rather make a peace. Why make peace with somebody you can overtake was the idea back then. Now it's more we make peace, make sure there's still peace in play, because it's easier to contain peace than to get rid of the threat and cause destruction, possibly. So this is all David was trying to do, keep peace. We as Christians, we got those of the world, and we represent our Father, going to them, trying to maintain a peace, but also trying to share His message with them, trying to bring them into the kingdom. Now, Scripture says we're to be make peace with them as much as we can, which means simply by being Christian, there's going to be people we cannot get along with. Simply by living the way He would have us do, there's going to be people that hate us. People hated Him, and He was perfect. So there's going to be people we can't get along with. Verse 3. But the princes of the children of Ammon said to Hamran, do you think that David honors your father, that he has sent comforters to you? Are not his servants come to you in order to search and overthrow and to spy out the land? This would have been a very common strategy. This also shows these wise people that he consulted with didn't know David. They didn't know who they were dealing with. When you're conspiring war against somebody, the important tactic was to know your enemy. These advisors of his were very bad, the fact that they didn't know who they were talking about when they were giving advice. One of the things we need to do as Christians is, first of all, what we look to first should come from Scripture. And all advice we get from that point should always go back to Scripture to find godly counsel. We shouldn't listen to the counsel of those that are foolish. This counsel here was foolish because if they would have known David, they would have known, okay, he's genuine about this. Rather than giving him advice, something that would have likely started a war with somebody he didn't need to go to war with. Oftentimes, us following bad advice will end up jeopardizing maybe us, sometimes others. That's why it's important to seek out the Spirit before we seek out the advice. Ask God for answers before we look to others. Sometimes God will reveal us answers through others once we go to Him first. God will never lead us wrong, but sometimes those of the world will. Verse 5. Then there went certain ones and told David how the men were treated. Verse 4. Therefore Haman took David's servants and shaved them and cut off their garments in the midst closed by their buttocks and sent them away. So he shamed them. He cut off their beards. He made a mockery out of them. Growing a beard during this time was a symbol of stature, is a symbol of wisdom for a part. So as to cut that off was to show shame and make mockery of them. So David's coming, bringing these people out of comfort, and he's returning them with mockery. What David means for peace and comfort, he's turning into shame and mockery. Verse 5. Then there went certain ones and told David how the men were treated. And he sent to meet them, for the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, remain at Jericho until your beards be grown, then return. So them allowing their beards to return. It's kind of a show that when they regain their stature, when they're not going to be as shamed as much. David, of course, being a great king, would have told their families that they were following command and being posted somewhere, which was absolutely true. That way their families wouldn't worry, because as far as they would have known if David wanted to speak to them, that they're still in this country with this king who, unsettling terms because they don't know much about him, how he's going to reign yet. But this also shows the type of man David is. David could have just sent them home the way they were, allowed them to face the mockery, but David showed compassion upon them. David also waits. There isn't shown any sound what he's going to do to this yet. He just gives his men orders to stay there. You know, there's going to be people in this world that mistreat us. And we go to our Father, and one day if they don't turn to Him, they're going to have to face judgment. Not necessarily for just what they've done to us, but for the fact that they haven't accepted Him. But hopefully they come to Christ, those that wrong us. And we see on the cross how those that Jesus prayed for them to be forgiven while they were still crucifying Him. That's the attitude we should have. Those that hurt us, we should pray for them.